This is the moment Donald Trump lost his closest allies in the United States Senate. If you walk into the Capitol building right now, you will see something that has not happened in nearly a decade. Empty chairs in the Republican leadership offices, silent phones that normally ring non-stop, and three of Trump's most loyal defenders refusing to take his calls. As of 9:47 this morning, Thursday, January 30th, 2026, the alliance that has protected Donald Trump through 2 impeachments, 4 indictments, and countless scandals has officially collapsed. Trump, already bleeding support in polls, hemorrhaging campaign cash, and facing 6 separate criminal trials, has just been blindsided by the one thing he never saw coming: his own people walking away. In this deep dive, we are going to reveal what happened in a secret breakfast meeting at 7:15 this morning, expose the private conversation that ended a decade-long partnership, break down the financial bombshell that triggered this crisis, and show you the internal Republican memo that is currently destroying Trump's 2026 strategy. Donald Trump isn't just losing allies. He is watching the entire power structure he built turn against him in real time. 14 months ago, in December 2024, Donald Trump made a promise to 3 Republican senators. The promise was simple: support my 2026 comeback, help me retake full control of the party, and I will make you the most powerful people in Washington. The plan was to consolidate power. Trump would run his 2026 operation through these 3 senators: Tom Cotton of Arkansas, the attack dog, Marco Rubio of Florida, the fundraiser, and Ted Cruz of Texas, the strategist. Together, they would control endorsements, direct campaign money, and decide which Republicans got Trump's backing in their races. It was supposed to deliver total dominance. Trump promised each of them cabinet positions in his next administration. He promised their states billions in federal funding. He promised that together they would crush any Republican who dared to challenge them. He promised loyalty would be rewarded. But the cost wasn't just their credibility, it was their political survival. Because defending Trump meant defending his legal battles, his inflammatory statements, and his increasingly chaotic decision-making, it meant explaining away behavior that even their own voters were starting to question. Business leaders in their states complained. Major donors started asking difficult questions. Cotton faced pressure from Arkansas manufacturing executives worried about tariff chaos. Rubio watched Florida's Cuban-American community turn cold over foreign policy disasters. Cruz saw Texas energy companies pulling back funding over regulatory uncertainty. They argued among themselves. Cotton wanted distance. Rubio wanted to stay quiet. Cruz insisted they could manage Trump if they just maintained access. But Trump dismissed every concern. He told them the polls were wrong. He told them the donors would come back. He told them the legal problems would disappear. Trump gambled that fear of his base would keep these senators in line forever. He assumed that after years of defending him, they were too invested to walk away now. He assumed wrong. At 7:15 this morning, inside a private dining room at the Capitol Hill Club, Tom Cotton, Marco Rubio, and Ted Cruz sat down for what was scheduled as a routine strategy breakfast. For 18 minutes, they talked about normal political business, upcoming votes, committee assignments, fundraising schedules. Then at 7:33, Cotton's phone buzzed, a text message from a trusted Republican mega donor. The message contained 1 sentence and a document attachment. The sentence read, "You need to see this before anyone else does." The document was a leaked internal analysis from the Trump campaign's own polling team. The numbers were catastrophic. Pause. In battleground states, Trump's favorability had dropped to 38%. Among independents, 31%. Among women voters, 27%. The analysis concluded that any Republican senator closely associated with Trump would lose between 4 and 9 percentage points in their next election. But it gets worse. While Cotton was reading these numbers on his phone, Rubio's phone was also ringing. The caller was the CEO of a Fortune 100 company headquartered in Florida, a man who had personally donated $2 million to Rubio's campaigns over the years. The message was blunt. "We cannot fund candidates who enable Trump's legal problems. The decision has been made." And at that exact same moment, Cruz received an email from the Texas Republican Governors Association. The subject line, "Urgent, Donor Exodus Update." The email detailed $47 million in withdrawn commitments from major Republican donors across Texas, all citing concerns about Trump association. The three senators looked at each other across the table. Nobody said anything for almost 30 seconds. Then Cotton spoke. He said, "We have a problem." For the next 41 minutes, they discussed what they already knew but had been avoiding. The Republican Party's major donors were executing a coordinated withdrawal from anyone connected to Trump. Corporate PACs were suspending contributions, business coalitions were issuing statements about political stability and governance concerns. On their phones, market alerts showed political prediction markets shifting dramatically. Betting odds on Trump's 2026 viability dropped from 61% to 44% in just 2 hours. Financial analysts were calling it a confidence collapse. The market doesn't care about loyalty. It cares about whether you can win. And right now, the smart money was betting that Trump could not. According to sources familiar with the breakfast, Cruz made the final argument. He pulled up a spreadsheet on his laptop. It showed projected fundraising for the next 18 months. Under current conditions with Trump Association, $89 million. Without Trump Association, $214 million. The math was impossible to ignore. At 8:24 a.m., the three senators made a decision. They would not publicly denounce Trump. They would not call for him to drop out. But they would quietly step back from his operation, decline his calls, skip his events, and begin rebuilding their own independent political operations. By 9 a.m., each senator had instructed their chiefs of staff to begin the separation process. By 9:30 a.m., word was leaking through Republican circles that the Trump alliance had fractured. According to three sources with direct knowledge of subsequent events, here is what happened in the hours after that breakfast meeting. At 9:15 a.m., Trump called Tom Cotton. Cotton did not answer. Trump called again. Cotton declined the call. Trump sent a text message demanding an immediate callback. Cotton did not respond. At 9:47 a.m., a conference call took place between the three senators and their top political advisors. The participants included former campaign managers, senior strategists, and one former White House chief of staff. The topic was damage control and political survival. Audio from this call, supposedly leaked to Politico later in the day, reveals the cold calculation happening in real time. One advisor said, "The donor class has made their decision. They are cutting off Trump and anyone too close to him. We either adapt now or we go down with him." Another voice, identified as Rubio's chief strategist, "Florida is already moving. We are seeing major backers shift to DeSantis operations. If we don't distance ourselves, we lose access to the money that funds everything we do." Cruz's senior advisor added the brutal reality. Texas Republicans are looking at 2026 numbers. Being Trump's guy is a liability now, not an asset. We have to make this pivot or we are done. It was a cold, calculated business decision. They looked at Trump's declining poll numbers and saw their own political careers at risk. They looked at the donor exodus and saw their campaign operations starving for cash. They looked at the legal exposure and realized defending Trump could drag them into investigations and scandals that never end. They realized Trump had become a liability they could no longer afford. The decision was made. Survival required separation. As one strategist put it on that call, loyalty is a luxury. We are in triage mode now. According to one source, as the call was ending, someone's microphone wasn't muted. You hear what sounds like papers shuffling. Then a voice, possibly Cotton's, says quietly, "He is going to lose his mind when he realizes what is happening." Another voice responds, "Let him." The feed cuts. Why did these senators do this? Follow the money and the survival instinct. Tom Cotton is a creation of Arkansas business interests and national defense hawks. They wanted a strong senator who could protect their interests and project American power. But they wanted stability and competence, not chaos and criminal trials. Sources say Cotton had a tough conversation with major Arkansas donors 2 weeks ago. The message was clear: you are too smart to go down with Trump. We need you in the Senate, but not if you are tied to someone who cannot win. Marco Rubio built his career on Florida's diverse business community and Cuban-American voters who value strong foreign policy. But Trump's erratic international behavior and legal problems were becoming toxic. When the CEO called Rubio this morning, it was not the first warning. It was the final ultimatum. Rubio can no longer balance being Trump's ally and being Florida's effective senator. The state's business community forced him to choose. Ted Cruz has always been a political survivor who reads the room and adapts. And right now, the room in Texas is changing. Major energy companies, tech investors, and traditional Republicans are looking for leadership that can actually govern and win elections. Cruz saw the $47 million funding gap and understood the message. Being Trump's strategist was killing his ability to be Texas's senator. This shifts power from Trump to the institutional Republican Party. Trump can no longer threaten these senators because they have done the math and realized that his threats are now less scary than the consequences of staying loyal to him. He cannot primary them effectively without the donor network, which is abandoning him. He cannot destroy their careers because his own influence is collapsing. When major donors coordinated a withdrawal like this, that signals something critical. The Republican establishment is cutting Trump loose. The money people, the corporate PACs, the business coalitions, they are executing a planned exit from Trump world. This is not emotional, this is strategic. What political analysts will call the Great Separation. This is the moment when the Republican Party's power structure decided that Trump is more dangerous than useful. This is not about policy differences, this is about survival. The legal ramifications are also significant. The January 6th prosecutions are advancing. The classified documents case has new evidence. The Georgia election interference trial is scheduled. The New York financial fraud case is ongoing. And a senior Republican lawyer told donors on a private call last week that Trump faces realistic prison time if convicted in multiple jurisdictions. If these senators stay close to Trump and he goes to prison, they go down as the people who enabled a criminal. That is not a political position. That is political suicide. Here is why this matters on a deeper level. For almost a decade, Trump controlled the Republican Party through fear. Fear of being primaried. Fear of losing his endorsement. Fear of his base turning against you. That fear created absolute loyalty from people like Cotton, Rubio, and Cruz. But fear only works when the threat is credible. And Trump's threats are losing credibility every single day. He is losing in polls. He is losing donors. He is losing in court. He is losing the institutional support that makes political threats real. When the fear disappears, loyalty disappears with it. Here is the domino effect we are watching in real time. If Trump loses his Senate allies, then he loses his legislative strategy for 2026. If he loses his legislative strategy, then he loses credibility with remaining supporters who want actual results. If he loses credibility with supporters, then his poll numbers drop further. If his poll numbers drop further, then more Republicans calculate that separation is safer than loyalty. If more Republicans separate, then Trump's entire 2026 operation collapses. We are looking at a complete political unraveling. International observers are watching this closely. China's government analysts are tracking Trump's declining influence. They see weakness and calculate advantages. Russia's foreign policy strategists are adjusting their US engagement plans. European allies are quietly celebrating what they see as a return to stability. A desperate, isolated Trump with no Senate allies is either controllable or ignorable, and either option works for foreign governments that have been dealing with his chaos for years. Where are the other Trump loyalists right now? Marjorie Taylor Greene has not tweeted about this. Matt Gaetz has not released a statement. Lauren Boebert has not defended Trump on this. Why? Because they are doing their own political math. They are watching Cotton, Rubio, and Cruz, serious establishment Republicans, walk away, and they are asking themselves whether they should be next. Silence tells you everything. When your most vocal supporters go quiet, it means they are calculating their exits too. This creates a split in Trump's coalition that cannot be healed. On one side, you have the true believers who will follow Trump no matter what happens. They see this as betrayal and weakness. On the other side, you have the pragmatists who understand that political survival requires adapting to reality. They see Cotton, Rubio, and Cruz making smart decisions. A divided movement cannot retake power. A Republican Party split between Trump loyalists and Trump refugees will lose elections, lose fundraising battles, and lose influence. The 2026 midterms are now a disaster waiting to happen for Republicans. Reports from inside Trump's circle describe a man who is increasingly isolated, increasingly angry, and increasingly paranoid. Sources say he spent 3 hours this afternoon making phone calls trying to reach Cotton, Rubio, and Cruz. None of them answered. He left voicemails. He sent text messages. He had staff members try to arrange calls. Nothing worked. He is experiencing what every authoritarian eventually experiences, the moment when the people you thought you controlled realize they do not need you anymore. The moment when fear stops working and everyone just walks away. Staff members around Trump are reportedly concerned about his mental state. One source described him as spiraling and unable to accept what is happening. He keeps saying that the senators will come back, that this is temporary, that they are just scared. He does not understand that this is not about fear. This is about mathematics. And the math says staying with Trump is political death. The empty chairs in those Republican leadership offices are not just furniture. They are symbols of power abandoned. They represent the end of Trump's control over the institutional Republican Party. They show that even the most loyal allies will walk away when the cost becomes too high. Trump wanted to be the undisputed leader of the Republican Party. He ended up alone, making phone calls that nobody answers. You can manipulate media coverage, but you cannot manipulate donor spreadsheets. You can spin poll numbers, but you cannot spin when the money disappears. You can threaten primaries, but you cannot threaten anyone when you have no campaign infrastructure and no funding. Ultimate truth, political power is not about loyalty, it is about utility. And Trump is no longer useful to the people who built their careers around him. So where are we right now? Donald Trump is at Mar-a-Lago, isolated from the Senate leadership that once backed his every move. Tom Cotton has walked away. Marco Rubio has walked away. Ted Cruz has walked away. The Republican donor network has turned against him. The business community has abandoned him. International allies are moving on. He is the most famous Republican in America, and yet the most powerless he has been in a decade. As we head into the next 72 hours, expect desperate behavior. Trump will try to attack Cotton, Rubio, and Cruz publicly. He will threaten primaries he cannot fund. He will claim betrayal and weakness. He will demand loyalty from people who have already done the math and walked away. But here is what cannot be undone. The infrastructure is broken. The alliance is shattered. The money is gone. The donor network that funds Republican campaigns has made a calculated decision to move past Trump, and once that decision is made, there is no reversal. When the people who funded your rise decide to fund your replacement, you do not come back from that. This is not a temporary setback. This is structural collapse. This is the moment when the Republican establishment looked at Trump and decided he was no longer worth the investment. And in American politics, when the money leaves, everything else follows. Subscribe now because we will be monitoring 3 critical developments over the next 48 hours. First, whether Trump goes public with attacks on Cotton, Rubio, and Cruz. Second, whether other Republican senators follow them in quietly distancing themselves. And third, whether the Republican donor class makes any public statements about their withdrawal of support. If Trump attacks his former allies, this becomes open warfare. If more senators distance themselves, this becomes a stampede. If donors speak publicly, this becomes permanent. This is not just a political crisis. This is the endgame of a decade-long power structure, the moment when loyalty dies and survival wins. Stay alert.